Spring Cleaning with 5S. I'm Jamie Cope with the WVU Industrial Extension, and we're happy to have everybody with us today. Excited to learn a little bit about 5S and what it can do to help get your stuff in order. So just real quick, for anybody who is not familiar with the WVU Industrial Extension, I'd invite you to visit our website or give Randy or I a call, and we're happy to talk about what we do. Very broad strokes, I would say that what we do is we help small to medium-sized manufacturers in West Virginia thrive and grow. So if you're interested in any of our services, again, don't hesitate to reach out to me or anybody on our team is happy to talk to you if you've got the opportunity to check in with one of us. So Randy, you want to go on to that next slide for a second here? We've got a few great things coming up. And one of them is we partnered with the New River Gorge NRGRDA, New River Gorge Regional Development Authority, and we're doing some classes down there. So definitely check those out on our website, wvmep.com. The next one that's coming up is March 22nd and 23rd, and it's a 10-hour OSHA general training. So if you're from that area and you can stop in, that would be great. All right, next slide there, Randy. Oh, and big news. We've got the West Virginia Manufacturers Conference coming up April the 24th. If you haven't registered, you need to do that right now. It's going to be a lot of fun, big stuff. We're going to be at Stonewall Resort, and Mark Bowe of Barnwood Builders fame has agreed to be our keynote. So we're really excited to have him on board as well. So lots of manufacturers, lots of hands-on activities, a great opportunity to kind of do a sampling of a lot of the things that, a lot of the resources that are available to manufacturers in the state. So definitely come on out. That's April 24th at Stonewall Resort. And you can register for that on our website as well. So wvmep.com, and then go to events and you can find it there. So that's all I've got. So Randy, why don't we just let you take off with 5S?
All right, Jamie, I appreciate it. So spring cleaning with 5S, perfect time of year to get into a little 5S action. I'm Randy Kowalczyk, and I'm the manager of continuous improvement for our group. I started off at a chemical distributor in the Northern Panhandle, and I started off in the plant throwing bags and filling up drums, and got myself into a position where I could be a supervisor and then eventually run the operations and get into some DEP and EPA and all those fun things. So I have a little bit of experience dabbling in everything, but continuous improvement was a big part of what I did working at a small manufacturer. So I have a little idea about what I'm doing. So we'll talk about some 5S today. And we'll start off with a poll. So if you know about 5S, 5S is all about having a clean workplace. True or false?
And Randy, while folks are answering that, I'm going to step in. I was a little negligent there in the beginning. If anybody has a question, feel free to put that in the chat, and I'll relay that to Randy while he's presenting, or we'll stick around for questions at the end as well. And anybody who, if you have to drop off early, don't worry, we're recording this and we'll send a link to the recording when we're done as well. So sorry about not saying that up front.
We'll let it slide.
Okay. And here we go.
All right, perfect. So we got a couple trues, mostly false. And it is false. It is not all about having a clean workplace. That's part of it. I think a lot of people, whenever they hear about 5S, that's what comes to thought. You walk into a place and it's clean at all times. If you walk in the morning, it looks perfect. At the end of the day, it looks great. And that's a part of it. But one of the big focuses is working on the efficiency of the workplace. You want it to be clean, but by making it efficient and getting rid of the things that you don't need in that workplace, it really makes it so that it'll end up being clean at the end of the day. It doesn't turn into a big cleaning task, and we got to make sure we have a half hour at the end of every day and clean. It should basically be clean, and it should be easier to clean. So 5S, it's a little more than just that workplace organization. You're also focusing on eliminating waste and making those wastes a little bit more apparent. So for those of you that don't know what 5S is, it's a systematic approach to identifying and eliminating waste and creating customer value. So it says nothing about, it's about having a clean workplace and putting everything where it needs to go. At the end of the day, it's really about eliminating that waste, creating customer value, and making that waste apparent. So why do you want 5S? Have we ever worked in a place that was disorganized, where every time you needed to grab an item to do your job, or somebody asked for something, you end up spending 25 minutes, half hour looking for those things? If you look into a plant, people walking around the plant all the time trying to find those things, that's a morale killer. I'm not saying everybody works as hard as they can every second of every day, but nobody wants to spend that time being wasted walking around in circles trying to find those things, or asking people and then pulling other people into it and wasting that time. So there's that word waste again. And also safety. Safety is at the core of 5S. There's a lot of places that do a 6S and add safety into it. I think 5S is good. Safety should already be on the top of everybody's mind. But whenever you start organizing and coming up with ideas for how to make the workplace more efficient, better, safety is a part of that. And as we've worked through 5S projects, there's been a lot of times where most of the ideas in a department are safety related things. Once we start digging into them, people that work on the plant floor really see that, hey, this area here, maybe you can walk through this area now, and we shouldn't have people walking through that area. So they come up with those ideas because they work there every day, so they have those ideas. I mean, who knows better how to keep themselves safe than the people that do those jobs every day? And 5S also gets people involved. 5S is what I like to start off with whenever somebody says, hey, we want to get into continuous improvement, we want to get into lean manufacturing. 5S is a good starting point because you can really lay the foundation for continuous improvement projects. The people on the plant floor, they come up with the ideas. They need to know who to talk to about those ideas and what the structure is. So 5S really sets up that structure for a continuous improvement process. And once that is in place, you can start moving into other projects, and it's a lot easier to start those off. And it also sends a good impression to people on the outside. A lot of places, there's people touring, whether it's potential customers, whether it's maybe there's another entity of the company that is offsite and they come in for things. So when people walk in, they can see that you're doing 5S, that things are clean and organized. And if a potential customer comes in and says, hey, how do you make sure that you have good quality? How do we make sure that you guys are efficient? If you can say, hey, we have a 5S program, and you can show them that you use a 5S program, I think that's a great selling point. So what can you organize? Anything and everything. It can be paperwork, it can be people's desks. I mean, a lot of times lean manufacturing, 5S, everybody thinks about the plant floor, but you can take that into the office, making things efficient in the office and laid out. I mean, how many offices have a storage room that's the catch-all? Everything is thrown in the storage room. And if you need to go in there and find something, you might as well not take your lunch today. So it can be anything from the offices to out on the plant floor, raw materials, even on the computer, how files are laid out on the computer. If you have a company that shares files, you want people to efficiently be able to take those files and get what they need. You don't want to have to make a phone call to say, hey, where did that file go? Where do we put these things? If you get them organized, everybody's on the same page, cuts down on that frustration. So on to the 5S's. So 5S comes from 5 Japanese terms. I'm not going to go through the Japanese terms. You translate those to English and you have proper arrangement, orderliness, cleanliness, cleanup, and discipline. But POUS doesn't sound as fancy as 5S, so they retranslated them into some more S words. So we end up with sort, set and order, shine, standardize, and sustain. And I'll work through those and explain what all those things mean throughout this webinar. So photos are a big part of 5S. Whenever somebody talks about 5S and wants to know about what the improvements are, whether showing whether they're showing a potential customer, any of those people that I talked about before, the photos are what does it. It's amazing to watch a place that was completely disorganized and see a photo of that place that looks nice, clean, organized, and it really tells a story. I mean, in this one here, you can see in the before photo, they would unload pallets, set everything right in the middle of that warehouse. And then whenever it was time to process those things, you would have to put them on a cart or figure out a way to get those over to your workstation so that you could do whatever you need to do. If you look in the after photo, they've not only put lines on the floor so everybody knows where things need to go, but they've said, hey, why don't we put these things on carts? So when it's time for somebody to do the manufacturing process, they can just grab them off of these carts and go. It's taking up the same amount of space, but we can really save them time and keep them running. So your first step, you have sort. So you're basically taking out all of those things that you don't need in that work area and either sending them to an area that might be able to use those things. Let's say you have 40 screwdrivers. You probably don't need 40 screwdrivers at a workstation, but maybe there's some other areas that needed those screwdrivers. Maybe that person was losing their screwdrivers and they would take a screwdriver from somewhere else. And the next thing you know, that's where all the screwdrivers went. So you can take those things and put them somewhere else in the plant where they're actually needed. If you still have 20 more screwdrivers than what you actually need, and you probably won't go through those screwdrivers in the next 10 years, it would probably be a good thing to just get rid of those things so you don't have to fight through the clutter. Whenever you do sort, there might be some things that you don't know what to do with. Those Mountain Dew bottles that are sitting on top of the machines, you know those are trash. That machine that's been over in the corner for the last 50 years, you know you probably need to get rid of that. But there might be a few things where there's a discrepancy on, do we need this? Do we really use this? So there's what's called a red tag system. And you put a red tag on it, you mark the date when you put the red tag on it, and whenever it's used again, have somebody write the date on it that it was used. And you might find out that realistically, you're only using that item that's for a special order that everybody thinks about. You're only using it every 8 to 10 weeks. And we set it right in the middle of our work area, right in that prime real estate. So maybe we can move that out of the way. If we're only using it 5 times a year, do we really need to work around that all day long? So at the end of the day, you sort those things out, keep what you need, get rid of everything that you don't. Once you have the things that you actually need, you get to the point where you set an order. So setting orders, when people start talking about peg boards, shadow boards, getting things set up so that you can tell what you have very easily without having any issues. I always think about whenever you do a project where maybe you're repairing something, so you have a few people involved, maybe it's a big piece of equipment, you have a forklift operator lifting it up in the air, and you go grab the couple tools that you need, and the next thing you know, you're missing one of the special tools that you need, and you can't find a replacement. So now you have 3 people, a piece of equipment up in the air, and everybody has to wait while that person goes and finds whatever that tool is. So this is setting it up so that you can easily figure out what I have in front of me, and also setting it up in a very efficient way. The things that I use 70 times a day, I want that right in my prime real estate. I don't want to have to bend over to grab it. I don't want to have to walk back and forth to get it. I want that very close to my workstation so that I can do whatever I need to and set it right back and cut down on that wasted motion. Even if you walk 10 steps 70 times a day, not only is that person frustrated walking back and forth all day long, but you're wasting time. And then you times that by however many people are in the plant, and that adds up really quick. So one of the things to think about with the set and order stage is point of use storage. So if you had a coffee pot on one part of the plant, and all of the supplies to make the coffee, the cups, the coffee, the creamer, and everything on the other side of the plant, so people had to walk all the way to the other side. I mean, what do you have on your hands? You're going to have a mutiny. There's going to be people, they don't have their coffee, they're angry, they're holding up signs outside. Yeah, you want to have those things that they use right next to where they're using them. So point of use storage, it's placing those parts and tools where they're needed, when they're needed. So we don't just have a storage area in the back and we grab a handful of those things if we're using a bunch of those every single day, trying to eliminate that waste of motion going back and forth and grabbing it. So you cut down on your non-value added handling of those materials. It can also promote visual management of those inventory needs. And we'll talk about visuals to help out with that as we get into this. But you can tell if I'm getting low in my area, I know that we're getting low. And I can call somebody in the back. I can talk to whoever I need to make sure that we have enough in the storage area, or if we need to order those items. So a lot of times, this is what you work with here. You have a plant layout. By no fault of your own, maybe you've had a couple expansions, you're doing a great job. But the next thing you know, you have a spaghetti diagram that looks like a bowl of spaghetti dropped on your plant layout. So trying to get those items that you need on a daily basis into that area can cut down on a lot of that motion. So things that are used daily, you want those right in front of you. Cut down on that motion. You don't want to bend over, make it very easy to get. If you're only using it weekly, those would be fine things to put on the bottom drawer of the work area, to put over off to the side where you have to walk back and forth. If you're only walking back and forth once or twice a week, that doesn't really add up to a bunch of extra time and wasted motion. And that also keeps that clutter out of the way on those things that you use daily. If you're only using it monthly, if you have to walk 3 minutes to go grab that item on a shelf over into a storage area, once again, no big deal. But there's no reason to fight over something and sort through something that you only use once a month, mixed in with those things that you use daily. A good example of point of use storage is the cart that housekeeping at a hotel would use. Housekeeping would be running back and forth, trying to, with handfuls of things, with towels and all of the things that they need if they didn't have that cart with them. They would have to run back and forth to that storage closet, and there would be a lot of wasted motion. You would have to have 20 more people on that floor to try to get things done before people started checking in again. Once you get those things on the cart, you can take care of multiple rooms and cut down on that motion. So then we get into the shine phase. So with shine, you can do that in conjunction with the set and order phase. But this is the part where people think, okay, this is clean. It's got to be clean. We'll make sure it looks nice. But it's a little bit more than that. You want to make sure that you actually either eliminate what is making the mess, or if it's something that's a part of the process, how can we make it easy to clean up? So if we have something, maybe there's a trough that catches whatever those items are. But that trough, it gets filled up, it's heavy, and it takes forever to clean that thing out. Maybe we can think of a better way so that the operator can clean that very quickly and efficiently, and it doesn't turn into this big ordeal. Yep. If you have a cutting table and you can put a bucket under it to catch some of the things that fall off onto it, instead of sweeping that floor, you've turned a job where you need to go grab a broom, sweep it up. It might, sometimes when you're dealing with metal shavings and fellings, it's a little hard to sweep those things up. But if you can catch those and have somebody just dump a bucket, you just save yourself a lot of time. And there's also things like this. So in the before picture, you have some issues there. It's not just normal, we got a little bit of dust on the machinery. By the looks of it, we have some leaks. So if we clean that up and make it look like the after picture, but we don't take care of those leaks, how long does it take before it looks like a disaster again? And not only that, if I'm the one that has to clean that, after you tell me to do it a couple times, I'm thinking, I don't really think this is the best use of my time. I'm not really worried about doing it because it's just going to look like garbage again afterwards. So once you look at it and really get to the bottom of why that mess is made, you make some repairs and then you clean it up. You can sustain that for a long period of time. So some more pictures. In the first photo, you have some shelving. There's some things on the shelves. They look pretty close to the same thing. I'm sure it looks like a lot of the shelves that we all have in our homes, our workspaces, wherever it might be. But below that, you look at the after picture, you've just taken it on to the next step. I know exactly where those things need to go. I can have my bins labeled. If I have to unload boxes and put them onto those shelves, I know exactly where they need to go. If somebody needs to grab them, they know exactly where they should be. And not only that, you can tell if you're running low on those items. If the bin's about empty, okay, we better order some more. If you have all of those things mixed in on a shelf, there's no way that you could tell if you're running out. So then you get that call from somebody in the plant that says, hey, we need to order some spray paint. Okay, how much do we have left? I need 3 more for this week. So we're gonna have to call somebody and try to get something in. The one in the middle, that before picture, it's a disaster. You know, people have found open space and they've thrown those things into that open space. You get that in plants all the time. I haven't gone to a place where somebody said, man, we just have so much space, we don't know what to do with it. Most people are saying, hey, we could use some 5S because we need to make some space. And that's how things look like that. Oh, there's an open spot, let's throw it over there, because there's nowhere to put those things. A big part of 5S is making sure that there's actually a place for everything. Speaking about everybody has a junk drawer at home. That junk drawer is just a bunch of things that you've never figured out what to do with them. So it just ends up being a catch-all and you throw them all into there. In 5S, when you define where something goes, not only will it end up in that place normally, but if it doesn't end up in that place, then you can hold somebody accountable for it. So in the picture below that, put some lines on the floor, determine where things need to go, mark things off in spaces where you don't want things to go, and people will generally follow those lines. And like I said, if not, at least they can be accountable for it. And the last picture on top for the befores, how many areas do we have that look exactly like that? It's a storage closet, things just get thrown on the shelf. If you need something in there, it could, it's in there, but it could be anywhere in that area. Get some storage bins, some labeling, makes life a lot easier for everybody. In this picture here, if you look at the before photo, not a whole lot of space to maneuver around in that area. You get into the after, now there's plenty of space to go around. You can add some other things to that area if you wanted to. Everything's laid out. There's no tripping hazards. You don't have to worry about anybody running into anything. And as you walk by, you look at it and go, wow, that looks fantastic. If you're somebody from the outside, or maybe the president of the company's coming in today, if they walk over there, they say, hey, it's looking really good in here. Let's move on to the next area. All right, time for another poll. So how many stars would you give your company's overall workplace organization? All right, looks like we have an awful lot of 3 stars. And in most places that we go to, I think that's where it's at. It's somewhere in the middle. It's not set up. It's usually not set up as efficient as it could be, but it's pretty efficient. It's usually, there's some places that are a disaster, but in general, the normal work areas, you still try to have people clean up and still try to get things done. But I think a lot of times it just gets to the point where you get into your daily routine, you're busy, a new order comes in. So you start working on whatever you're working on, and it gets to the end of the day and you want to clean things up and you say, I don't really have time today, I'll get it tomorrow. So maybe your 10-minute cleanup now is a 20-minute cleanup. And then the next day you say, well, I have 10 minutes, but I don't have 20 minutes. I still can't clean it up. So maybe on Friday I'll get done a little bit early and I'll be able to take care of this. And then on Friday, something else happens and everybody's trying to get out of there. So it turns into, this 10-minute job turns into a 4-hour cleaning project. And a lot of times you see, hey, somebody's coming in for a visit. We need to clean this place up. Hey, our ISO audit's on Friday. We got to get it. We got to get this where it needs to be. And we always happen to get it to where it needs to be, but we shut down for half a day and have everybody start working on that. So 5S really tries to get you to the point where you don't have those big cleanups. You have your normal cleanup, but for the most part, things are organized, things have a home, so it makes life easier. So we've done our first 3 S's here. So now we get into standardized. Some places only use the first 3 S's. They don't worry about the other couple because the last 2 are standardize and sustain. And those are about just keeping it in place. And, in Celebration of lean manufacturing, they've taken 5S and cut it down to 3 and lean that out a little bit. But in reality, if you're doing those 3 S's and you keep things going, that's where it's at. But that's the hard part, keeping things going. A lot of places we talk to, that's what they say. We've done it. We've done some good things, but it was always hard to sustain those things. So when it comes to standardization, a lot of it is developing a checklist with the people that are on the floor and having the team lead be a part of that. And we've gone through the first 3 S's and now we're at our ideal state. So what things do we need to do to keep it in its ideal state? And I've never liked a vague checklist. Try to be, you don't have to make it 25 lines long if it doesn't need to be, but try to make it specific. Just saying, clean your workspace doesn't mean anything. I tell my kids to clean stuff all the time and it doesn't look anything like I want it to. So not really my kids' fault. I said clean. Their version of clean is picking up a couple things here and there, and it kind of still looks like a disaster. But if I specifically say, put these toys wherever they need to go, put these games in this pile here, then they can also be held accountable. It's hard for me to say that they're doing anything wrong when I say vague statements. So you have the people on the floor, the leads talk with each other and you get that checklist down. So basically that's just your daily checklist. And having a lead or a supervisor check the workspace before those people leave work every day is how you make sure that still happens. And by no fault of their own, like I said, they get busy, they have those things happen, but we still need to keep up on it so it doesn't compound into a bigger problem. So one of the other things that can help with standardization is visual management. So communicating without speaking. If you're driving down the road and you see one of those lights hanging up and it turns red, more than likely you know to stop. If you see it turn green, you're more than likely going to go. So there's some of these visuals that people generally know. Red, stop, green, go. So as you put things up in the plant, it's a good idea to make sure that you follow what human nature is and what a general understanding is. If you want people to stop, using blue probably isn't a good idea, because then I'm not communicating without speaking, because I need to ask somebody, what is this blue sign? I didn't use a red octagon to stop. Now I have blue triangles. Well, what's a blue triangle? So it kind of defeats the purpose. A good example, has anybody parked in a parking lot that doesn't have any lines in it? Absolute disaster. But magically, you put lines in a parking lot, nobody has to pull up to the front of Walmart and say, hey, these lines are here, what do we do with these? People, for the most part, people can pull into them. There's still plenty of people that park halfway on another line because they can't handle it. But for the most part, people know what they should be doing, and you get those cars lined up. So in the sustain phase, that's where we have a 5S champion that we would generally pick when we come in and do this project. And that's the person that really facilitates the project on site. I come in, generally train supervisors, leads, the leadership, and then we try to figure out who the 5S champion should be. Somebody who can really work through, understand the process, and work with the people on the plant floor to take their ideas, talk through some of their ideas, and really keep things moving. So that person on a monthly basis, generally, will come in and do an audit. And that audit is just giving some more checks and balances to that process and making sure that the team leads are doing their daily checklists and the people on the floor are doing what they need to keep the 5S program going. So they come in once a month. You generally want to make it random so that they can't just say, oh, they always come by on the 7th. So let's make sure that we get it done on the 6th. Try to make them random. And it's just holding everybody accountable to make sure that it doesn't fall apart. For the most part, I think people want to do the right thing. People want to keep these programs going. A lot of places that have used 5S that for whatever reason, they're not doing it now. Everybody says, man, it was a lot better when it was that way. But you get busy, you have those things happen and it falls apart. So having that monthly audit makes sure that everybody's on the same page. And also with the sustain phase, You have communication boards. So this communication board is everything that you would basically ever put on a communication board. But a lot of the main ones, you'll have some before and after photos. Those after photos make it easy to reference. You look at a photo and you can look at the work area, and I can tell if they're sustaining 5S. Also with those audits, there's generally some kind of score that goes along with it. So you might have something as easy as, a 3-star system. You might have something that gives weighted point values to it. Whatever works for your company is what you need to have. You can have the audit sheets on there. You can have whatever the 5S checklist, so anybody can see the checklist. You could have, the 8 waste on there. Whatever you want to put on that communication board to communicate to people without having to have those conversations. All right, that was my webinar. I wanted to make sure we had time for any questions that came up, any questions, comments, whatever you need.
Yeah, that was great stuff, Randy. Thank you. And anybody who does have a question, go ahead and drop that in the chat. I had a question about the sustain step. We do a lot. We talk a lot about that, and I know that you've put some programs in place that really help with that step. Can you talk a little bit about how you have helped folks sustain their 5S program? Oh, are you there, Randy? Oh, now he's muted. Now he's back. Are you there, Randy? Uh-oh. Can you hear me, Randy? Well, that's not good. I'm going to go ahead and read a comment here from Jason. Thank you. Great presentation. We are tightening up our 5S in our facility, and this is very helpful. Will you make the presentation available? Yes, actually we will. We'll be sending out a recording of the presentation to everybody who registered. So yeah, look for that in an email, hopefully by the next few days, early next week at the latest. Hey, Vitali, let's see. It all sounds good and agreed. Great presentation. How do you implement? How do you change the culture at the workplace? What tools could be used to start with? Since Randy seems to be having some technical difficulties, I'm going to step in there and talk a little bit about some of the things we have done as far as in the 5S world. Randy has done a great job of setting up a program with a 5S champion. And he does an overview of 5S to everybody who would be impacted in the program. And then a manager picks a 5S champion. And a lot of times that's somebody who's underemployed, or you want to see if they have some management skills or not. It's not like you're putting them in charge of a whole team or squad or something like that, but there is some responsibility here. And that person oversees the implementation of the 5S program. And Randy is available for a consultation. They can call him, email him, whatever they need. And then he comes to the facility once a month and goes through the 5S with the 5S champion to see how the progress is coming. Hey, we talked about getting this area organized last month. How did it go? What do you want to do next month? Those types of things. So as Randy mentioned, some people take that sustain off of the 5S. Whenever they talk about 5S, they knock it down to 3. But that seems to be the one that most folks have problems with, is keeping things going after it started. So if you think that's something that you would like to have more information about, Randy would be happy to talk to you. Tracy's putting Randy's information in the chat right now. So and also, Vitali, to the culture question, that's one of those things that it's a slow process, but this is definitely one of the things that'll get things moving. And buy-in from above is always the way to change culture, even though it still takes time. If upper management is not taking it seriously or going through the steps as well, then you know that the folks lower down on the chain aren't going to care about it either. So good questions. Thank you. Do we have any other questions?
Jamie, I feel like, are you gunning for my job? That was pretty good.
Was that good? All right. Thank you.